For centuries, when people have imagined vast conspiracies, they have looked to one family more than any other. Today, the More Freedom Foundation will reveal the shocking truth about the Rothschild family. And it comes in two parts. First, the Rothschilds are super impressive. Second, they're not really all that important. In 3 generations, they moved from the Frankfurt ghetto to the heights of European society. They did this by essentially inventing large-scale government finance. For hundreds of years, banking was personal. It was run by families, because you could only really trust your family members to move money across international borders. During the Napoleonic Wars, Meyer Rothschild made a ton of money. He also made the family's reputation by conspicuous loyalty to the German royal family of Hesse-Kassel. Even after Napoleon conquered that family's territory, Rothschild managed to preserve Wilhelm's wealth. The Rothschilds were people that European aristocrats could trust. Meyer's sons moved to the European capitals, and the House of Rothschild became the government bankers of choice during the first heyday of the Industrial Revolution. The Rothschilds had an extraordinary first-mover advantage. They were perfectly positioned to take advantage of the 19th century's incredible leaps in technology and communication. They financed wars, the first railroads, and the greatest infrastructure projects of the 19th century. They made a ton of money. They used their wealth to break into Europe's anti-Semitic ruling classes. It's a very cool story. Like any group of disruptive capitalists, they did a lot of good, and they did some bad too. Like Microsoft in the 1990s, Google 5 years ago, or Facebook or Amazon today, the Rothschilds became very powerful. And they became very, very resented. In the 1800s, things moved blazing fast by the standards of the 1700s or the 1600s, but they moved much more slowly than they do today. Rothschild banking dominance was able to last for half a century, rather than the 5 to 10 years that market dominance can last today. But that power ended, which brings us to part 2. Like Chuck Berry or Muddy Waters in the 1950s, in the later 19th century, the Rothschilds watched as their innovations were taken over by their former oppressors. British and American bankers like the Barings and the Morgans pioneered modern forms of corporate ownership that superseded the old family-run model. There are still Rothschild banks, but they are nowhere near as important as they used to be. The Rothschilds have a deeply impressive history, but the fact is that today they're simply not that important. It feels ridiculous to say this, but judging from the volume of Facebook and YouTube comments I get on the topic, I kind of have to. The Rothschilds do not run the world. The world has not been run according to their sinister plan for the past 200 years. You only have to look at what's actually happened to realize that these conspiracy theories are hogwash. If they controlled everything, would they have signed their power and influence over to Citibank? If they controlled everything, would they have signed half of Europe over to the communists for much of the 20th century? If they controlled everything, would they have allowed the destruction of Europe's Jews in the 1940s? Of course not. It's insulting to even suggest it. Like Facebook today, there was a period of time where they had conspiracy theory-worthy influence. But if they had a sinister plan, it involved making the entire world vastly richer. Kind of hard to complain about that. If the world is run by a conspiracy, that conspiracy has done a pretty good job. The Rothschild family today is much like the Rockefellers or the Vanderbilts. Still rich, still influential, but nowhere near as important as some people think. The obsession with this family and their influence is an old story, and it's a pretty distasteful one. Should you ever find yourself falling for a story that fits into this tradition, keep in mind how dangerous and counterproductive that tradition is. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And if you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, please click on the Patreon link here to find out how.